Despite efforts to avoid the issue, President Biden responded to weeks of violence and unrest on college campuses yesterday with a very brief, about 3 minutes. It was a White House address that attempted to placate both the pro-Hamas demonstrators as well as those who are calling for a return to law and order. Well, all this is coming as administrators on many campuses across the country have literally caved to these protesters' demands. And all of it, frankly, appears to be an effort to make the problem go away, but it certainly is not working if that's what they were hoping to do by caving in to the demands. But with the election now just 6 months away, in fact, 6 months today, do these actions indicate that Democrats have begun to panic in fear that the pro-Hamas protests will drive voters away? Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Randy Weber. He serves on the House Energy and Commerce Committee, as well as the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. But perhaps most important for this discussion, he is the co-chair of the House Bipartisan Task Force for Combating Anti-Semitism. Yep, he's leading the charge. He represents the 14th Congressional District of Texas. Congressman Weber, my friend, great to have you back on the program.
Thank you, Jody. Thanks for having us. Good to be here.
Well, listen, President Biden really was probably forced to kind of speak out finally about the demonstrations that are taking place all across the nation. Do you think the whole situation finally reached a boiling point that he frankly could just no longer ignore this?
Well, obviously it did, Jody. What was interesting when he said someone to speak something to the effect that we are a country of law and order, I was thinking to myself, well, we need a different president then, someone who's not going to cave to the left, someone who's not going to cave to the Jewish haters, somebody who is going to stand strong for America and our best friend, our ally, Israel. And he's not it. So it's really interesting that he's finally, well, I should say his team has finally decided he needs to speak up.
You know, what's just amazing to me is news reports indicate that the motive behind what I'm about to say is that they're hoping that the problem will go away. But in order to do that, it seems that many college administrators have caved to the protesters' demands. You know, this is probably just a common sense kind of question, but what happens if you reward these protesters for violating the law?
Well, it's the old saying, when you reward good behavior, you get more good behavior. Guess what? When you reward bad behavior, you get more bad behavior. Jody, there's been latest count, 48 universities across this country. And if you looked at a map, and I don't know if you have or not, but really only about 11 of them are in the West, starting at Texas and going to the West Coast. Most of it is in the East. A lot of those liberal bastions of liberality, the colleges, where all these students go to get indoctrinated by their professors, sadly, and they don't get taught history. They don't get taught about, Hitler and the Nazis and the anti-Semitism and the Holocaust and all those things that cropped up. And you know the saying, never again. We're not teaching our students that we cannot allow this to happen again. In fact, as you point out, in many cases, the liberal professors are actually teaching that we should not be the friend of Israel. And this is, good common behavior, all these protests. It's unnerving.
Yeah, unnerving to say the least. I guess the bottom line for Congress in all of this is that you all passed the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. And here you are as the co-chair of that House Bipartisan Task Force for Combating Anti-Semitism. Give me your reaction to this Anti-Semitism Act that was passed.
Well, obviously, you know how many Democrats voted against it. And it should no surprise to us. What we're basically saying is, look, we're not stopping free speech. We're saying these are the signs of anti-Semitism that we should be aware of. These are the things that should be condemned. we actually have some language in there for the Department of Education that says they can bring these up as a concern. And I like the comment earlier about we should be taking money away from these colleges. When I was in the Texas House, the more on the Public Education Committee, the more money we gave in education, the higher the professors' salaries went and the higher tuition went. And we shouldn't be standing for that, especially now when we are at a pivotal time in our nation, in our country, in the world's history, really. I guess you saw the other day or a day or so back, Jody, that Turkey has cut off all trade with Israel. You're starting to see countries in the Middle East come against Israel. It's pretty unnerving in some fashions.
Yeah, I do want to bring that up. I'm glad you did about Turkey. I want to get your opinion on that. But before we do, I wanted to put a clip up. You mentioned the free speech, that the bill this past week did not do anything away with free speech. But Jerry Nadler on the House floor, he said something else. Let me play this clip 3 and get your response to this.
This bill will do nothing to help stamp out anti-Semitism on campuses or anywhere else, but it will threaten free speech. And those of us who oppose anti-Semitism and support freedom of speech ought to vote no on this bill.
All right, your reaction to that?
It is astounding to me that this is a time in history that I'm 70 years old. I've never seen anything like this. And of course, as you know, our forefathers lived through this. My dad was one of the last of the greatest generation of World War II. They watched this unfold in Nazi Germany and under Hitler. And while we are sitting here trying to say never again by doing some things, defining some of those acts, exhorting our colleges and our professors to pay attention, we're not saying that those people cannot talk. We're just saying, look, these are certain acts that ought to be looked at and decide if there's a tendency to lead to violence. And if there is, then we want the Department of Education to take note of that and make certain that there's plenty of security on the ground. Now, think about all the security that we have to put up, Jody. Who's paying for the manpower, the police that have to be there away from their jobs, away from their families, their regular jobs, I guess I should say, their beats. And they're having to be there to protect college students who seem bent on just tearing up a college, trashing it completely. It makes no sense to me that Jerry Nadler and others would say no, except that they don't want Republicans to get a win. They want this president in the White House, who's been critical of Israel, to stay in the White House and get the votes. And so they're not going to vote for Republican. And actually, it's a bipartisan bill, but they want Biden to stay in the White House and keep his pressure on Israel for a ceasefire. It's mind-numbing.
It is. Well, listen, when I asked this question, we're only going to have about a minute left, but you brought up Turkey, and I want to get your reaction to this. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken actually admitted that the barrier to peace in the Middle East right now is Hamas. They're refusing to any of the negotiations. But then we have Turkey suspending their trade with Israel. We have Colombia severing diplomatic relations. Does it seem like Hamas is benefiting from these other countries rejecting their relationship with Israel? Is Hamas benefiting from all this?
Well, that's the propaganda. That's what you're seeing is all the propaganda. That's what started, as you know, in World War II, way back before World War II actually got up and running. And you're seeing the same kind of propaganda. And yes, Hamas is benefiting from that. And when I get people, whether they're pro-Palestine or pro-Hamas, in the hallway stop me and say, what do I think about Israel attacking the Gaza Strip and women and children getting killed? My response is, look, Israel was attacked and Israel is responding. We wouldn't want Israel or anybody else telling us how to prosecute our war if somebody attacked us. We shouldn't be telling Israel how to prosecute their war.
Congressman Randy Weber, thank you so much for your insight into all of this, and have a great weekend yourself.